So today we're working on the drip rails, these things here. As you can hardly, well, you can see that. See the rust holes in here, along here. So this has to be replaced, this piece of metal. I'm not replacing the drip rail. I want to keep that. A lot of street rodders and hot rodders take those off. I think that's kind of a nice character of the vehicle, so I'm keeping it. So I got to cut this out here, all the way back to here. Looks like the rest of this will be okay. Doesn't look like it's rotted through or anything. The other thing I want to make sure I do is right above here, there's this seam here. Kind of see that seam. What I want to do with that seam is I want to weld that all up. So when rain comes down, it doesn't get into that seam. So it'll be sealed. But I want to maintain this little ridge here. So it's like original, but it's just welded in here. And then same with underneath here, there is a seam here, which will be welded and filled too, all the way. So it'll be kind of all molded in, but it'll still kind of maintain the original look. It's just a little bit more sealed up. So that's the plan for this episode. The other thing I did want to show you while I'm thinking about it is there is the windshield frame. Now, as you can see, there's no rust holes. I mentioned that I would show that again. So that's all been taken care of and finished out, and you can see the curve in it. So, all right, that's what we're doing. Okay, so I cut that spot out, and as you can see, I'm starting to put the new piece in. Yep, it's a little longer here, That way I can cut it to fit the opening of the door. I started just kind of tacking it in right now. You can see some of the primer here, the gold. That's the weld through primer that I put on. I also spray in there kind of like a rust converter up inside, and then you can actually get it from the back side too. So I sprayed all inside there too, because there's probably a little rust inside behind here that I'm not going to be able to get to, but I really don't think this is going to rust out for the next whole handful of decades. So that's that part so far. I can show you the other side. And here's the other side. You can see that I've got that. After you kind of clean it off, you spray that on there. But here's the piece that's going to be going up inside here. And you can see that the curvature is right where I want it. Again, that's that shrinker stretcher. You can see the lines in this material here. That's all from that shrinker. That'll fit up in there. I did do a little bitty bend on there to kind of curve up around. And again, I'm going to be getting rid of this seam up here anyway. So when I weld it, I can grind it and weld all that together. So that's the part so far. And there it is trimmed up. And you can see now it looks more like it's supposed to. I just got to finish welding it up here. I'm also going to weld down here. I want to make sure this is all encapsulated, so this seam will eventually be welded all the way around the whole door opening. But I'm going to do this part now and finish up all this. It's going to be ground, and then I can always prime it. And the other side is done the same way. Okay, so we're working on the drip rail here. I had this TIGged. A buddy of mine came over and TIG welded this. I touched it with a grinder just a little bit. The idea was to try to maintain this inner body line, if you will, right through here, which I'll be able to do. Then I had also put on the new piece here that replaced the rotted out piece. As you can see, I'm in the process of welding it. And now when you weld this stuff, you have to tack, you tack, and you jump around a lot. That's why it looks like it does. It doesn't look like a nice smooth weld because it's not. You can't do that with sheet metal. So I'm going to finish grinding this out. I will then put some filler on it, and that's when I'll show it to you next. But the idea was that I wanted to take this drip rail and I wanted to seal it from the top and bottom so it has no moisture can get up in there and cause any more issue, or any issue, period. That way it's kind of all sealed up. Like I say, then I'll take some fiberglass, I'll just kind of go over it thinly and sand that out. And that's where we'll be on this side. This is the left side, driver's side. And I'll get that taken care of. I'll show you quickly the passenger side because I'm not quite as far on that side. As you can see, here's where I am. I have the new piece in here. I'm starting to weld it in. I haven't started welding underneath here that much yet. This is all done, roughed in. For the upper drip rail, you can see that body line in there. That's what I'm trying to maintain. This side of the truck, this piece came loose from this piece and went up. So I had to cut it all and pull it back down and tack it in. So now I'm gonna weld that in good. I'll finish welding here and here all the way up. And like I said, the next time you'll see it, it'll be with filler on it. I also have to try to get these pieces out. This is screwed on there. And of course, those have probably never been out of there. So I can't get the screws loose. So I'll be ended up having to drill them or something to get this piece out and probably reset the nut behind there. So whatever screw I decide to use again, it'll thread in fine. So that's something I gotta do. There's a couple of those items around the door openings that I've gotta work on. So anyway, this is where I'm at. And there it is with the filler put on it, rough. Most all that will be all sanded off. So that's kind of what it looks like. The other side looks the same way. And the next time you'll see it, it'll be sanded. So as I continue on, you can see it's roughed in. It's not even all the way roughed in yet. I kind of put a little extra filler on here because I wanted to make sure that I got the rib that I wanted to get. And I did. So I can sand down flat here, and then I can bring this down to it, kind of like where you see this line right here. That's going to be a body line. Although it's high right now, it's going to come down further. And how I come up with that body line is this body line right here. There's a light body line here on this A-pillar of the windshield, and it's going to come up and it'll follow all the way around, and it'll come down to here and kind of just disappear into the body. That's the way I'm going to do it. So since this has all been welded and stuff, this stuff isn't really that thick. But I gotta sand quite a bit off to come down to that line. And then it's gonna be a rounded, kind of a soft line, similar to this body line here. This is the passenger side, or excuse me, the driver's side. And over here, I've been working on it also, and you can kind of get a better idea. See how that line is? And then it'll come around and meet right down into there like that. So this one's a little further along. However, like I say, I want to blend this down just a little bit better. It won't be as thick as this. It's gonna come down a little bit because that hump wasn't that big. It was probably, you know, less than half that. But I will work my way down. All this work here and all the work I did up underneath, you know, here was all done by hand. A piece of sandpaper, longboard, all done by hand. And that's kind of the way I do things. I like to do things by hand. I can see where things are going better than with power, although power has its place and I do use it also. But this particular thing, when it starts coming into inside rounded corners and stuff like that, you kind of have to do that by hand to get a good smooth finish, good straight finish. And although underneath here is not perfectly straight yet, I will be longboarding this again. What happened is I actually ran out of sandpaper. Because the sandpaper you use here, you can see how gritty this is. That is 36 grit paper. That's how you straighten a body. You use a heavy grit paper like 36, and then you step down to like an 80 because you're still kind of straightening it. Then after that, you're not straightening anymore. You're just smoothing. So all this is in 36 grit. So that's where I'm at. I will probably, not sure if I'm gonna leave it there or not, but that's kind of roughed in. I got a lot more sanding to do on it, and then I'll prime it. And I'll probably show that in the next video.